Most of you older people grew up in a time period in America when there was cultural Christianity. There was a kind of Christian consensus in America. People understood the church, they understood the Bible, they understood the gospel, they understood the morality that came out of the Bible. Sometimes it was called the Judeo-Christian ethic. But even more, it was a cultural kind of Christianity. If you grew up in the South, you probably joined a church, some church, because if you joined a church, you'd get a job at the bank. If you joined a church, you could be hired somewhere because you were one of the good guys. If you joined a church, you connected with other people and you were socially acceptable and you were religious and you believed in God, and that was good, like the founders of America believed. They didn't believe in the God of the Bible, but they believed they couldn't keep people moral if there wasn't some divine threat. So they created a God of their own imagining to hold over people's heads. And so there was a belief in God, and it was defined primarily by the Bible, so there was a kind of cultural morality that survived a long time in America, and it was showing up in elections 20 years ago, 15 years ago. There was still a consensus. We remember the moral majority, the religious right. They were still able to get people elected, still able to have some clout and some power. Let me tell you something. Gone. Gone. No more. There is no more cultural Christianity. There is no collective Christian consensus that is going to have any power in this country whatsoever. In fact, the more distinctly Christian we are, the more we will be labeled as extremists, bizarre, alien, homophobic, intolerant, guilty of hate crimes. Cultural Christianity is, as we know it, that kind of consensus coming from a biblical understanding is gone. It is gone. The people who now vote in America couldn't care less. They couldn't care less about that. The people who carry the elections, they don't want anything to do with that. They want to escape the extremism of cultural Christianity as they see it. So I think as we go forward, it's going to come down to this. And this is exactly where it ought to be anyway. Forget the cultural Christianity, because people really got going in the wrong direction all that time, fussing around in Washington, trying to get certain things done legislatively. You do everything you can to vote for morality and family and marriage and all of that because it's better for people to live that way. It's better for kids to have two parents. It's better for men and women to get married. It's better to be moral. It's better not to be a criminal. It's better not to commit all kinds of sex outside your marriage. It's better not to freewheel through life having relations with anybody you want. That's bad. It's better not to do all that, and we want what's best for people, if nothing else, is a common grace. But we're not going to have any power to make that happen in the future. And many people thought that was exercising their Christian witness, and it wasn't. It wasn't. I remember a few years ago when I was asked to go to the White House during the Bush administration to meet with the White House staff to explain to them how they could get back to the point as Christians where they could see the people who opposed them politically, morally, and socially as the mission field rather than the enemy. They had turned their mission field into political enemies. Christianity went into redefinition, and Christianity became some kind of a political movement. It's shifted now. Nobody's going to call it the Christian right. People who used to say things like that now call themselves the Tea Party, because at least that's not a religious phrase. But we're not going to have that kind of clout anymore, and what's going to happen is we're going to have to be back to where we should have been all along. The gospel advances by personal testimony to Christ, one soul at a time. Okay? This is what we were originally called to. And as I said this morning very briefly, I think we're closer to living in conditions like these people did in the book of Acts than we've ever been in the history of our country. We're like aliens in an increasingly anti-Christian culture. And what is our witness? Our witness is to give testimony to Christ, to speak of Christ, to speak the gospel. Obviously, you could say a lot about that, but let's just leave it at that point. We need to say everything that we can possibly say about Christ personally. May I just point one thing out to you? If you are a Christian, you have received the Holy Spirit. If you have received the Holy Spirit, you are a witness. The only question is whether you're a faithful one or an unfaithful one. And your Christian witness isn't discharged by getting mad at non-Christians. Your Christian witness is scandalized by doing that. They're the mission field, not the enemy. And the kingdom advances not through politics, not through some kind of cultural morality. The kingdom advances one soul at a time through personal testimony, personal witness. From you, from me, maybe it includes preaching. For you, maybe it includes neighbors and giving them a Bible study. Maybe it's one-on-one. But that is the way the kingdom advances. Spirit-filled, Spirit-powered individual believers are made witnesses who give testimony to the power of the gospel and the truth of the gospel on a personal level. And so again, I say the kingdom advances one soul at a time.